So we'll move to number 5 on the, we'll move to number 6 on the agenda. This is the one grant that we are reviewing today. We had a little bit of information and an email about that. I think the email said there would be 1 or 2 presenters today.
Yes, we have.
Okay. Thank you so much. If you want to do the meeting. Thank you.
My name is Sergeant Grisham, supervisor with the Pima County Sheriff's Department, and I'm currently assigned over the counter-narcotics lines. I'll tell you that it's my understanding that intergovernmental agreement has been drafted for review by the board here. I have not seen that draft. I have just been provided a little information that it covers overtime. And I'm here to address any kind of questions that the board may have regarding that grant or the intergovernmental agreement with CNA. Now, what I can give you a little bit of information that CNA is an alliance between some law enforcement agencies here in Pima County that focuses on narcotic activity through interdiction and intervention with narcotics that come to the streets of not only Pima County but the city of Tucson. That alliance is overseen by the Tucson Police Department. They are the fiduciaries of it. We are intelligence driven. There's intelligence folks up at CNA. There's some military intelligence folks. There's some Sheriff's Department intelligence folks, as well as TPD, et cetera, that help guide those cases. They do cross-jurisdictional. Some of them start in the city, cross into the county. Some start in the county, cross back into the city. And that's really our focus. It's really that simple.
How long have you guys been in business? In business? Yeah, how long have you been in business?
The Counter-Narcotics Alliance has been up and running since the early 2000s.
That was my question, because a lot of the language says to establish CNA, and I thought I had been familiar with CNA for some 15 years now. Is it to establish like a new grant additional to the CNA that we recognize? Or?
It's my understanding that this agreement is going to outline the Tucson Police Department as the fiduciary of that, and that they will cover the overtime that may be associated with work with narcotic cases.
Have they always been the fiduciary, or would that be the change coming?
You know, it's my understanding that they have always been the fiduciary.
Okay. Thank you.
So this is the actual, just the contract that provides the agreement of operation between the city and all of these, right? This is not a grant, obviously. It's just a contract. Is that correct?
It is my understanding that the fiduciary, which is the Tucson Police Department, will handle overtime or cover the overtime expense that may be associated with working these types of cases.
Okay. You guys were established after Mantis was eliminated, isn't that correct?
Well, the established Mantis changed to CNA.
To CNA.
It wasn't. It's my understanding they had a name change, if you will.
And I was around, and it had to do with the bad name that Mantis had gotten about distributing cocaine and trying to follow the cocaine. Do you remember that? It's sort of like the gun running thing that was done. Get guns out and see if we can find the gun runners. I was around, and Mantis allowed small level cocaine, well, a lot of cocaine to be distributed, and the Mantis said, oh, we're going to follow the drug dealers. And it was a big fiasco. We allowed drugs out, and Mantis was changed to CNA. My question is, what has changed in terms of its accountability structures? As the legal defender, and I know I have experience, and you guys have experience. I keep feeling like, well, maybe I have a conflict of interest. I know the stuff that you guys do too, is that when I was the legal defender, I had many lawyers who had cases that came out of the CNA. And they were, there were cases generally involving, what, I know somebody snickered at me the last time, little people. was not. It says that you're looking at the reducing financial incentive and all of this. What have you guys done? Both to change what you did from Mantis to CNA and accountability structures? And where are you going at the financial incentive with this organization?
Well,
Where it counts?
your discussion about methodology with Mantis, I have no knowledge of that. So I cannot speak of why the name change.
Well, can somebody here who was around that went from Mantis to CNA? Nobody was around? I was the only old one? Come on, you guys, you were all around. The Mantis was around when they distributed cocaine. You remember that? Or you weren't here?
I was with the department when Mantis was up and running, but
And Terry, I think he was around.
my knowledge of it's pretty limited. I was a patrol guy, so I wasn't involved in narcotics. I wasn't an undercover officer or anything else. I don't remember the politics behind it, and there's always politics behind it. But I know the CNA has come in, it kind of evolved, or it got changed over, and some other people took charge. And from what I've seen over the years, CNA has done a good job. And I'll be the first one to tell you, everybody knows how I get in here. I'll start telling on people right and left. But from my experience, just being around the agency for 32 years, CNA has done a very good job. Being held accountable, doing what they're supposed to do, accounting for the money, accounting for the drugs. That's always been my experience with them. And that's about all I know about it.
Yeah, and I've never been on CNA or Mantis either. But my experiences are very similar to Joe's. The one thing I like about CNA is from my perspective, not only they've been accountable for everything, including the money, which is the hardest part to stay accountable for sometimes in drug interdiction or efforts, but they also approach this issue of narcotics from a comprehensive perspective, where they do a lot of education for our youth and trying to prevent on the demand side. And we talk about that a lot in this room, where we not only want to do the enforcement, or we're not as interested in enforcement as dealing with it from a societal perspective, and CNA does that as well. And I think that's one of the big benefits of being part of CNA. It not only benefits the city, but it also benefits the entirety of Pima County.
One of those things that
I
most
might, if I may, I think there's a difference, and maybe somebody can correct me if they're more knowledgeable as to the workings of CNA or Mantis at the time. I don't believe that they distributed narcotics. I think they let narcotics that were already here be distributed by the individuals who brought the narcotics in. Unlike the gun running that was used, those weapons were supplied and then just distributed and then tracked. So there's a big contrast between
Not a big contrast, but
allowing something, criminality that was already existing, and trying to track it by providing the object you're trying to track. CNA did not provide narcotics to anybody to track, in my experience.
One of the other things I noticed about CNA, you're asking, so I'll tell you. What I've seen is they have a fairly regular turnover. Like, they don't allow these guys to stay in there for years and years and years. They rotate them out, which cuts down any possible wrongdoing. You know, if you leave somebody in a especially like an undercover role or an intel role long enough, they start cutting corners, they start getting lackadaisical. So there's always turning over. They're always turning over the people, like they're only in there for a set time and they get moved out. So that actually helps too. That's just my experience. I'm right.
You're absolutely correct. There is a time limit that the detectives and supervisors can retain in that assignment.
Tia? This isn't really so much a question, but more of a statement. I feel a lot of frustration with the documents we're being provided with as PUPC. Specifically, there's nothing about program design of CNA in this, right? So it just says education, but we have no idea what types of programs, who you're educating, what level of the funding is going towards the different line items between intelligence versus education. So it makes it very difficult, I think, to assess the efficacy of these grants in a really meaningful way. So I know that's not really your position, but like, can you tell us a little bit more about how CNA is actually structured and implemented in the community? Because just looking at this grant, it's just simply a continuation of a program that's been going for 15 years. So the grant application is really more contractual language than anything about the program design.
Well, currently it's ran by Captain Levitt. He's a captain with the Tucson Police Department. I do know that one of my detectives participates in community outreach type programs. He recently spoke at a crime-free landlords consortium, if you will, to just have a good conversation with those folks about narcotics and narcotic use in apartment complex and rental properties that can have a foothold. He has recently spoke to some schools, educators. I do know that. From the leadership point of view, Lieutenant Wildblood over there, he's a lieutenant with Tucson Police Department. He runs a Twitter page, CNA, for communications to stay in touch with the community. I tell you, all of our cases are really driven from the community.